Hear me? Thank you so much. Welcome, Hannah, to the stage. Let me just bring you down here. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I am so excited to hear from you today. We have a really fun kind of back and forth questions about your experience working at ActionRocket and just how you got involved in the industry. So let me bring those up for the audience. And those that are sitting in the audience today, if you have, got a couple years under your belt in development, you're curious how to get into email development, this is going to be, I think, a really fantastic session to ask questions to. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Why don't we kick off with first just an introduction to you, what you do, and then we can get into some of these questions here.
Yeah, sure. So, my name's Hannah. I'm based in London and I'm a junior coder at ActionRocket. And I've been working here for nearly 2 years, which is crazy. Yeah.
Amazing. And then we'll kick it off with how did you get into it? What's your backstory? How did you get a junior coding job? I actually saw in Email Geeks a couple weeks ago being like, are junior developers, junior coders the thing? How does one get involved in it? Would love to hear from you what your journey looks like.
Yeah, sure. So at the time when I kind of heard about coding and tech and development, I was unemployed. I had just quit my retail job because it was draining my soul. And so I was like, okay, I want to do something different. And yeah, I remember hearing about coding and development. So I was like, what is that? I don't really know what that means. When I thought of coding, I just imagined like binary code and like matrixy looking stuff. So I Googled it and just ended up going down the rabbit hole of like, what's front end development, what's back end development. And I was like, as I was learning about these terms, I was just determined to understand what they meant because it was honestly just a whole other language to me. And so I came across a webinar, like this live coding session, and this guy was just building like the most basic, like 1990s looking, not to knock 90s designs, like designed websites, but like really simple HTML and very basic, like just a simple website. And so after I watched that, I was like, okay, I want to learn how to do that just to add another skill under my belt. Like I like to pick up different skills and stuff. And so I went on Code Academy and did like the HTML course, and I really enjoyed it. And so I decided that I actually wanted to pursue a career in web development at the time. So I did a boot camp, and then after I finished the boot camp, it was a full stack web development course. I didn't feel like I was ready to actually apply for full stack jobs, but I felt as though I had enough proficiency in HTML and CSS to do something with that. But when it came to looking for jobs with that only required HTML and CSS, I couldn't find anything because email coding wasn't mentioned on my course or anything. I'd never heard of it before. And I came across a video on YouTube of this guy talking about email development. And then from there, just created a portfolio, did a couple projects, like built a newsletter and a promotional email, and I think an email receipt, and then just applied to any job that I could see, any job that I could find based in London, and then got a job at ActionRocket. So yeah.
I love that. I actually just had the light bulb moment. One of my goals for 2024 is to get better at just understanding all these technologies that power our tech stack and the frameworks and the terminology that people always talk about. So I have started the full stack development little track on Code Academy, and it's been quite fun so far.
Nice.
So curious, in addition to kind of HTML, maybe you're still going along the full stack developer track on Code Academy. What technologies and programming languages and tools have you worked with so far? And what are you finding the most engaging? Do you hate any? You don't have to say that if you don't want to, but are there any that you would run for the hills from?
Any that I would run from the hills from, maybe Ruby, like the backend language Ruby and Ruby on Rails, because I still kind of have trauma from my boot camp experience, my web development course experience. I haven't touched that since because it's scary. It's bad memories. But in terms of technologies that I use currently in languages, HTML, CSS, like in my day to day as a at ActionRocket. But in my personal time, I like to dabble in JavaScript. I did like a Python course, so I know Python. But I don't really have much use for it. But the ones that I find most engaging are is CSS, because you can just create anything your mind can conceive of, and it's so visual, which I love. Like I'm more of a visual person, like a front end person. I don't really thrive off of the back end kind of stuff. I do have an interest in it, but yeah. And in terms of tools, a design tool that I really love is Figma, because it's so simple and so understandable, and you can do so much with it. So yeah, CSS and Figma are like amazing.
Figma is on my list to get to know a little bit better this year as well, because I feel like there's so much to learn.
There is, yeah.
Do you work on any kind of personal projects outside of what you do at ActionRocket?
I do. So I don't contribute to open source at the moment, but I do like to do a lot of personal projects. One that I did recently was I built an email from a design that I saw on Twitter from a user called Dylan Evans. I think I can paste his in the chat if that's okay. I've pasted his like he did this 30-day design challenge, and he just created email designs for different companies. And one of them, someone at work shared one of his designs, and the current one pinned on his Twitter. And I just fell in love with it because it's so beautiful. Like, it's amazing. I don't think Dylan is here, but if you are, Dylan, like that's a beautiful design. And so I was really like inspired to do something with it. I was like, this can't just be a design. Like, I have to bring this to life in code. So I just took it upon myself to code it for desktop. And yeah, that's one that I did recently. And yeah, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
I love that. We'll definitely have to take that soundbite and share it with him, because I've interacted with him a couple times on Twitter, and he's been so enjoyable, and I love the designs that he creates. So
they're so good.
I'm sure he'd love to hear it. Yeah. I'd love to know, we're briefly talking about Dylan, but are there any figures in the tech industry or specific developments in technology that inspire you, or that you've kind of kept up to date with?
In terms of figures, I guess Dylan is one, like, as a designer. Another figure, I would say, like, an email celeb, Jay, like, I think the way he codes things, like, it's crazy. Like, I want Jay's brain. But in terms of technological developments that inspire me, I'm gonna say like the AI revolution, the AI boom, like that inspires me, but it also really frightens me. I guess everyone can agree that it's frightening, because like when you hear AI, you think of like robots roaming the streets and like taking over the world and taking people's jobs. But it's also quite amazing how you can do so much good with it. Like even ChatGPT, like I have so much fun with that. Like sometimes I'll write a sentence and I'll ask it to make it sound better, and it makes it sound better, obviously. And so, yeah, I really, it's just crazy what you can do with AI. But a quote that makes me feel less frightened about AI is I don't remember where I heard it. I think it was on a YouTube video, but the quote goes, AI is smarter than you, but it's not wiser than you. So like, if you were to ask AI, I think this again was mentioned in the talk, but if you ask AI to get you a cup of coffee, like you have to set all these crazy conditions for it to get the coffee without, like, I don't know, running someone over or like stealing the coffee. Like it'll get you the coffee by any means necessary. And so humans are obviously wiser in the sense that when we're going to go and pay for the coffee, like we're not going to get illegally. So yeah, I would say AI.
Yeah, that's a great point. I too have been leaning on AI recently with the Code Academy bootcamp that I'm trying to get through. Just I'll pop in code where I'm like, it's not working, and I'm at a
Yeah.
breaking point, and it will tell me that where I've gone wrong. So, in a way, if you use it in tandem to your current workflow, it's quite complementary and not as scary, I think, as it might be made out to be.
No, definitely. Like, I remember I was trying to teach myself React at one point, and I just couldn't get my head around what JSX was, like JavaScript, HTML. It still
Mm,
boggles my mind, but I just asked Chat GPT to just explain what it is, and it explained it, and I was like, oh my God, it makes sense. Like, I'd watched so many videos, and I still couldn't understand
mhm.
the videos, but Chat GPT like made it clear for
Yeah,
me. Yeah, yeah,
it's so helpful.
it really is.
Today's also your lucky day because Jay said money's in the post on the way to you
Oh,
for
okay.
declaring him
Thank
a figure in the tech industry.
thank you.
Next question. Where do you see yourself continuing to progress in your career? And I remember you and I, when we initially connected, I was like, I hate declaring a 5-year plan because I don't
Mm,
know. But
yeah.
do you have any idea so far of like, or do you think you'll try and go down, let's say 5 years from now, a role that you can play around with JavaScript a little bit more than email development? What do you think?
I think, you know, if you asked me this maybe like a few months ago, I'd be like, I want to get into front end. But I think for now, like I always change my mind. But for now, I think I'm set on staying in email. I think what I would like to do, like the way I'd like my career to progress, is to maybe uh, be more involved in the actual design process of an email, because in my day to day I'm given a design and I just code it, but I think it would be really fun to actually have an input in like just actually designing it from the beginning, because I really am passionate about design and I love using Figma in my personal time. And another thing is maybe like to be able to build like a website that utilizes back end features, not just front end. Because I can code for the web, but like code for web, but I'm not really that proficient in back end. So maybe just for fun, I'd love to be able to code like an e-commerce store or something. But for now, I want to stay in email for sure. Yeah, and yeah, do like dabble in design and stuff.
Good. Good that you'll be staying around with us. I love to hear it. And I'm sure Jay is relieved in the audience as well that you have no plans to leave. Can you walk through? You mentioned that you get handed the design, right? And then you just code it out. Can you
Mhm.
walk through a little bit more what your process looks like when it comes to developing an email from a design?
Yeah, so I'll get given the design, and I like to make sure that I have the desktop version and the mobile version of the design. And I like to be really organized with my code. So um, when I'm before I even code, so I'll like set up my images folder. I'll make sure like all the images within the design are exported, because it kind of, I don't know, I feel like I can't start something until I have everything I need. I don't really like to code a bit, then export, then code. Like it just breaks my workflow. So have all my images, all the assets that I need, and then yeah, I'll code it, make sure it looks responsive and mobile, make sure it's responsive and mobile, and then put it through a live render tool, make sure it looks good on all the email clients that needs to look good in, and then hand it off to have it checked by the rest of the team. Yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
Do you check every single inbox? Do you run an inbox preview on like every single one or just a handful of
Just
top
a
popular ones?
just a handful. I think there's like so many email clients. So
Hmm.
a handful of ones. I don't know if yeah, I'm sure I can, like just Outlook, Apple Mail,
Yeah.
Gmail. I hope I'm allowed to say that. But yeah, I hope it's not
I
confidential.
mean,
I don't think it is.
I I'm hoping that that is something that we can all acknowledge that which I mean there's a million different previews out there of available combinations and I always feel for developers and designers and marketers that are like, now I have to preview and QA my email on every single combination. And I'm like, I don't know if you do. Like, we should talk about this. Like, I think there's a way you can check without using 48 hours to do so. So
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think the one that I dread the most is Outlook, because we can all always problems with Outlook. So yeah.
Yes.
And then other
Yes.
people QA it as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. When you discover something isn't working in your code, let's say either, via an inbox preview or you're just coding, what's your thought process to finding a solution?
It usually, yeah, it depends on what it is. So if I've coded everything and it looks fine, but when you have like a little error, like the little red line, sometimes in your code, and it doesn't show you where the problem is. Um, I This is a tip that I got from Jay actually. But what I'll do is like I'll duplicate the email, and let's say I have loads of different modules. I'll delete thing like the module one by one. And let's say I've deleted the footer, the second module, and I've gotten to the hero section, and there's still that like red line. I'll like inspect that section and see if I can, see the problem. And usually I find it. Usually it's something like, oh, missing closing tag, or like a class that's got a weird like funky letter in it or something. That's the way I usually solve the issue if it's like a bug. And then if it's like an issue in terms of, oh, it's a particular module is like not showing properly in a specific email client, I'll go back, I'll go on Email Geeks, I will try and find YouTube videos. And if I still can't find a solution, then I'll ask Jay and he solves it in like 2 seconds, and I'm like, okay. Yeah. So that's my process really.
Yeah. Everyone needs a J. I have a
Yeah.
Mark, you have a J. I completely get it. If you're in the audience right now and you don't have a J or a Mark, I am very sorry for you.
Yeah.
What recommendations do you have for those who are nervous to kind of lean into the learning curve? I know for me, the first couple years of even being asked to like look into code or try and create a solution, I found it so overwhelming. And obviously you went in with the intentions of wanting to learn how to develop and being open to all of the knowledge. But for those that feel scared to lean into kind of the code piece, what recommendations do you have for them?
I would say like I know it's easy to say don't be intimidated, like it's fine, but honestly don't be intimidated when it comes to like learning to code or like just leaning into that aspect of things. And start small. Like when I first started email coding, I didn't realize that coding for web and email is completely different. Like when I heard about email coding, I was like, oh, I can do this. And then it was like, oh, you use tables and TRs and TDs. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just had to start small. Like, okay, let me learn how to build like a little banner. And then let me learn how to build a hero section, and just, yeah, practice and be consistent. And for some reason, when I started learning, I couldn't, maybe it was my bad like Googling skills at the time, but I couldn't find many resources, or they were really old. But now there are so many sources out there, and even like Parcel, like you have the course, which I even looked at and found some like helpful things. So just start small and like don't be intimidated and stick to one resource. Yeah, because it's really easy to like bounce from thing to thing or course to course. But if you just stick to one, like it'll be fine. And I think talking to people online helps as well.
Yeah, definitely. Lauren in the chat just said, how do we join Email Geeks, which is also a really good resource if you're in the audience right now and you're not a member of the Email Geeks Slack community. There's so much great knowledge there and threads and people asking questions that just end up as a kind of repository of information, which is always really helpful.
Yeah.
Would love to hear, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I wish I had it when I knew about Email Geeks when I first started learning how to code for emails. Yeah, it's a great resource and great community.
Annette, one of the speakers who could no longer join us today, she was originally the person who told me about Email Geeks many years ago. So we all learn about it from one another, which is always fun. What is one piece of advice that has stuck with you since you've started in your journey with development?
I would say one piece of advice is don't compare your journey to other people's. Like, it's so easy to look at how quickly other people are progressing and feel discouraged or feel like there's something even potentially wrong with you. Like, for example, for me, when I was doing my web development full stack bootcamp course, it was already really intensive. Like, I don't think learning in that condensed period of time, I think it was like 12 weeks is healthy anyway, for like 9 hours straight. But I was looking around and concepts that people like didn't even know about, suddenly it clicked for them after like one lecture. And I was like, I still don't understand, like, I don't know how to create an array, or like, I don't understand how to create a variable. Like, I don't understand how it works. And I felt really discouraged. I felt like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. But now looking back, I understand all those things. It just took a lot of time to sink in. So yeah, don't focus on anyone else. And like, if you're passionate about it, like, you can do it. And yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah, that is a great piece of advice. And it's very easy to, I think, compare one another in situations like this, where you join a conference and you're like, that person has 15 years of experience and they're in this amazing role. How do I get there? But yeah, everyone has their own journeys, which is so important to acknowledge.
Exactly.
I do have one question from the audience, from Gareth, which I will tee you up for. I want to make sure that people can also kind of follow along with your website, your Twitter, and your LinkedIn. So as I position this question up on the stage, if you do feel inclined to follow along where Hannah is posting her work or check out her website, please feel free to scan one of those QR codes. So this is a question from Gareth. Hi, Hannah. How do you tell clients that their designs won't and can't be implemented 100% due to client rendering? How flexible and understanding are clients in this regard?
So because I'm a junior coder, I don't really speak to clients that often. So usually I will tell if something isn't what, usually a designer comes to me and asks if this is possible in email. And if it's not, I believe the designer may tell like the account manager, who then tells the client. But I don't actually speak to clients that often, to be honest with you. So at some point I will, but not for now. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
No, it's fair. I think Anne has a good point just in the chat. You educate them, and if they are still stubborn, give them what they want, which I'm sure maybe Jay could back up in a way. If there are, we have one more. Let me pull this up. Oh, just a thank you from Gareth. That looks like it's it in terms of questions. I loved learning from your experience. Even when we first connected, I feel like I want to become a coder myself just based on talking with you. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences with the community. And I hope some people in the audience found some value and feel comfortable or more comfortable with leaning into kind of the code side of things. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And I just want to say I'm always here to like connect on Twitter or LinkedIn. I hope the QR codes work. I didn't actually scan them right now. I scanned them yesterday. But if they didn't, like, you'll find me somewhere. So yeah,